Welcome, traders. My name is Adam Harris, Chief Market Analyst, and I am recording this on Sunday, the 3rd of November, for the week commencing Monday, the 4th of November, 2024. So, in case you've been living under a rock, you're not aware of it, of course, the most important election in our lifetime is up this Tuesday. This is the US presidential election. And we could talk about it forever. I'm not going to do that. Really, I'm just going to state a couple of different things here. That is going to, essentially what's going to happen if you're UK in the UK time zone, the last polling station or voting station is going to close. That's Alaska. That'll close 8 a.m. UK time. By that time, other voting booths would have started, polling stations would started tallying the votes, and so vote numbers will already be coming through. And so throughout that day, throughout Tuesday, we're going to be seeing numbers coming through. Now, the next big thing will be later in the week will be the BOE interest rate decision. Obviously, there's an expectation here for a rate cut, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. And in the US, also the expectation here for a rate cut. I find that interesting that they're both sitting at very similar numbers, doing similar potential, taking similar potential actions, or at the same time. I think that is significant. In other words, to me, that signals that the UK economy is trying to sort of tack itself onto the US economy. Okay, so one more thing that I wanted to do here, and this is more as an exercise, as an academic exercise out of interest to most of you. And I want to keep it very brief. I'm going to put in my prediction for the outcome for the election based on my research, which would be the equivalent of doing, say, fundamental analysis on a company or a stock. This is kind of what I have done, and this is going to be, I mean it more on a lighter note, this is my expectation. So on the next slide, let's go and say, let me reveal to you what my expectation is for the outcome of this election. Let's move across. Where is it? Come on. There we go. Okay, so this is the electoral map. For most of you who don't know this, each state gets a certain number. There's a long story behind it. You should look it up. It's very interesting. It's not very useful. It causes a lot of grief. It allows a minority to control the majority. But here's my point. On the left-hand side is what I believe is a very strong likelihood of an outcome for people who believe that Trump is going to win. This is going to be hard to take. So I'm not kind of trying to cause any strife here. I'm just saying this is what I think is likely to happen. And really, this hinges on Texas and Florida being won by Democrats. Okay, on the right-hand side, this is where Texas and Florida stay with Republicans. I'm fairly confident that Ohio is actually going to go blue, and that leaves us with 340 and 198. So I believe that we're going to be sitting somewhere between the results of the one on the right and the one on the left, and the difference being Texas and Florida. So basically, from what I can determine from my research and my experience, it is going to be a mind-blowing win for Kamala Harris. Obviously, is it possible that I could be wrong? Of course it is possible. Just in this case, I very much doubt it based on my past record of working my way through this and based on my research. But it is a possibility. However, I don't think it is likely to happen. And again, I could talk about it forever. So I'm just going to stop right there. I'm going to say to you this. I think it's going to be likely be one of these two. What I do know it's going to be is it's going to be tumultuous. It's going to be a big upset. I think that it's going to be a landslide for the Harris-Walz ticket, and I think that the Republicans will attempt, as they did in 2020, to reject the results. That's it. I'm going to leave you with that. Let's see when we get through to next week what the likely outcome of that is. I also think if we go to the charts now, we can talk about how I think the markets are going to respond to that. So the first one here is the volatility index, the VIX. It looks relatively decent, but I would say this is a somewhat bullish pattern, meaning that we see this often. I talk about this. This is a potential triangular breakout pattern. You could just see here the high lows coming in. And yes, could that be something that happens this week? We see a little bit of a breakout. Yes, there could be an increase in potential volatility or uncertainty. We could see a bit of a breakout to the upside. But as it sits right now, the market is just not necessarily on edge. But it does look as though it is going to break to the upside. Okay, it's looking bullish here. It's looking good. So I think it's fair to say that in the near future, we will see a boost. And I think the potential for it is to head up towards 30. So we will see a bit of a spike, and it'll take us back to where we were kind of 2022, which is also a period of election. That was the midterm elections as well. So let's see how that unfolds. Okay, let's have a look at the dollar index. So the dollar index here had, this is after NFP last week, Friday. We could see that it actually had a bullish engulfing candle. So it's a really strong run. The dollar's been really strong after having been pretty weak for a while. But the difference to me that is worthwhile paying attention to is the structure. Here you can see a very steady series of extension, retracement. Here it has just been running straight up. We had a very small pullback and then a very strong reset on that. So typically with price action like this, especially in isolation, this would be a move, a continuation to the upside, potentially to the top of the range. So if you look at it on a monthly basis, we would see it continue to push up to the top of the range. Now, so there's a couple of ways in which this can play out. Yes, it's possible that between now and the results on Tuesday to Wednesday, we would see the market play out. So actually the election starts obviously on Tuesday in the US for them, which is the first Tuesday of November. And we would see the results would actually start to come in likely on the Wednesday side. I'm sorry if I sort of fumbled that a bit in the beginning, but yes, my expectation is that the 5th is Tuesday. The results would come out sort of Wednesday throughout our side, but it'll be an eventful night anyway. Now, if I am correct, if it is going to be a landslide, the earliest results coming in will start to already lean blue. Okay, so that'll be one of the things, which means that it's possible that as soon as we wake up, Kamala Harris will already have been declared the winner. This is if I'm right. Obviously, as I said, I've got to keep in mind that I could be wrong. I don't think I am, obviously, but it is always a possibility. So here we go. I think there's a possibility that it would be amazing. I mean, it would be very aggressive if by Wednesday we saw, before the results came out, we saw that dollar shoot its way to the top. If that was the case, it's a very strong possibility we could see a breakout outside of this range. Okay. So this type of price action, that is kind of what I would expect. But here's the only other catch in that, which is why Monday is important, is we've had a really big run up here. We have not had a decent retracement. So if you look at the previous moves, we always had a decent retracement. We're really overdue for a correction that I would say would bring us further back down here towards the 302, 103, down towards 101. I would have expected that. It's not a guarantee. There's no guarantees in life, as I just said. But I would have expected that. So what could happen here? We could find some strong resistance at that 104.30 level, and we could actually see the market just ignore this NFP day and have a correction. So that is a possibility. It's a valid possibility. But I would say also if we see a strong move between now and Wednesday, now as the election results start to come out, that could be because it actually has the intention of potentially breaking out of that range. So that's the only thing that I will be watching for this coming week. When we look at Euros results on Friday, again, I want to show you, we had this straight down move. We had a pullback. We've had this very strong, heavily bearish candle closing, bearish engulfing right to the low. Usually with something like this in isolation, I would say to you, it's a certainty that it's going to continue down towards these levels. But the problem is, again, we also had a very shallow retracement. Possibly how this is going to play out, we could see a double bottom and see it bounce back up. Okay, but no doubt what it does tell me is we are going to see volatility this coming week. Not extreme, not ridiculousness. I think again here the weekly candles one to watch. Should we break the low or break the high? And again, we're sort of roughly in the middle of the range. So I'd be amazed if somehow we manage to get to the bottom of the range within that period of time. But I want to show you again how extreme some of this is. Here with cable, this looks much more like it wants to reverse. This is a rejection. This has got bullish divergence down here. So this is showing more signs to me that it actually wants to turn around and kind of stay at this level. Aussie dollar also is just, again, very overextended. What an extreme move. Again, we've got lots of wicks forming here. It doesn't mean it can't go down, but I think it is looking for reasons to try to turn around just because it's overextended on the daily. When we look at Kiwi dollar as well, you can see a big move and you can just see that position holding, lots of wicks on either side, meaning it's overextended. It's trying to go back up, but also there's strong selling pressure, most likely coming from the US dollar. We look at dollar yen and you can see a big move and a pullback. This could be a potential buy, but again, you've got that strong resistance there. So always questioning that when we're right at those levels. And again, this is not, again, I do think we're due for a deeper correction on this, but we're living in unusual times. And this is, as I said, if you're not sure why this is the most important election in our time, it's really more to do with Putin and the threat of Putin, because if the US withdraws from NATO, Putin gets Ukraine. He needs it. He needs its wealth. Once he does that, he invades Poland and Finland. And then, of course, this side of the world is immediately within 2 years, we're within a global conflict. North Korea and Iran would jump in. So those are the dominoes, and that's part of why this is so important. So if you weren't aware of that, that's something you need to be aware of. Okay. Okay, so that's a potential setup, but there's some strong resistance here, and I think it's also overextended. There's a chart here I want to show you that's absolutely extreme. So again here, big move, consolidation, big bullish candle, But this is odd behavior. And again, it's most likely just due to anticipation of the upcoming market. So this is the one I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you how ridiculous this is. So we had this absolute big move down here on dollar CAD, bounce back up, comes back down, and then just this entire rocket this takes off. The distance from here to here without any significant retracement is really unusual. I very, very rarely see moves this kind of sustained where you would get that kind of a move from these lows and bullish divergence. So that wasn't really that unpredictable. But look at this. You can see that's 27 days, almost a month of just straight going up. That's incredibly unusual, guys. I just want to see if there was another chart that I wanted to show you this on. Give me a second. No, that was the one. Okay, let's have a look at gold. All right, so I wrote an article where I thought that 2008-70 or something would potentially be the top, potential top out of this. We will see. We can see a little bit of this kind of exhaustion coming in here, a little bit of bearish divergence. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we've got some nice strong moves up here, fresh highs, but we've got a lower high here. So that doesn't mean it reverses now. That just means it's starting to get very tired. It's starting to do that. We can see last week's candle is a gravestone doji. Okay, so we could see a bit of a correction here, potentially down towards 2,600, but it depends. If we see that throughout November this closes quite bearishly, we would get our first bearish candle here, and we would then potentially likely get that correction down towards 2,500. So this week, I'll be looking for a possible change of trend, and we'll see. If it is going to break below these lows, we could see a move down to 2.6. All right, so that is looking interesting to me. Alternatively, the way in which it could play out is it tries again and stumbles, and so by this time next week, we can just see that it hasn't really gone anywhere. Right, let's move on. Crude oil. So crude oil continues to look weak. I can't recall where I sort of left it, but for me, it is, it's obviously operating within this kind of more bearish pattern. It's looking as though more of that pressure is kind of building up on the lower base over here, and we'll have to see whether when it breaks up, whether it breaks up to the upside or the downside. But if I remove this momentarily, this for me looks very much as though it's a key level of support and resistance, and therefore when price comes back down to that, it would actually break through the upward sloping trend line, and if it broke through that, we would see a big move down towards the $40 range. And I think that would be significant based on all the different things we have going on in the world. We've got a resurgence in an interest in nuclear power to power AI of all things. Well, who would have said that? And so we're going to see lots of focus on energy, clean energy as well, for obvious reasons, if you've seen any of the weather bits lately. But I think we're going to see a move towards nuclear, and I think there is a ticking, there's a clock ticking on this as to, I don't see much growth in it in the future. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't going to, continue to support some areas. All right, let's have a look at the global indices. So global indices doing a very nice weekly retracement. This is a good one to watch here. Will we get a break of the high of last week? This is on the S&P. Break of the high or break of the low if we're going to get a deeper correction. Overall, the markets are nice and strong and healthy. We could still see a bit of a monthly correction. This was something I was hoping for a bigger one before in this period, but the market just bounced. And so again, the market is showing signs of exhaustion here. So the one to watch is really the weekly candle. If we break the low, we'll see a correction, potentially see a bit of a correction back down towards that sort of 41,000. It'll be exploited in the media as tied to the election. It isn't. It's just a technical exhaustion. If you've been following any of my last 5 or 6 episodes, though, this was something we spoke about. It was due anyway from a technical perspective. If we break the high, then it's had a nice weekly retracement, and it'll just continue back up. S&P as well, you can see it looks like it's also showing a bit of exhaustion. These are signs of exhaustion, believe it or not, although they are bullish. They're kind of like a last gasp. We've got a downtrend on the daily. We're testing levels, support and resistance here, and we've pulled back into this area. So basically this week is to look for a bullish candle to finish by the end of the week. We'll see how that goes. I really wouldn't read too much into how the markets are going to accept the different administrations at this time. They're not really that influenced immediately by whoever wins. They've usually baked in one or two different possibilities. We know that one involves, tariffs, which will just destroy the economy. And there's a whole lot of different things that would just destroy it. But the likelihood, it's likely the market is aware who's ultimately going to be the winner. And so it's much more likely to be that. So anyway, okay, let's just have a look at this. This is just waffle. This is ridiculous for the NASDAQ to do this. It's more uncertainty within this industry for now. I saw it somewhere that they're going to remove one particular from the Dow. They're going to remove that and throw Nvidia in. We're going to replace Nvidia, replace another one. I forget which one it was. Wasn't like Microsoft. It was something else. It was really big. I should go and find that out. There we go. Intel. So Intel's getting booted from the Dow Jones and being replaced by NVIDIA. Incredible. Okay, Mini Russell just not doing much here. So basically this is just treading water till the election is over, till we're through it. And then of course we've got Christmas coming. Here we can see a nice little retracement on the FTSE, but still staying within this area, still near all-time highs. Nice little bullish candle there. So again, this could set up and continue to the upside. I'm not unhappy with that. The DAX still holding, looking pretty good. It is definitely starting to lose a bit of energy over here. This is a possible little bit of head and shoulders. But again, I think at most I would expect a pullback down towards 18.5. Remember that all the performance that we've had from the markets over the last 4 years, and so it's really just about the market probably just taking a bit of a breather and then just kicking off. Again, you could just see this waffle here. This is the Nikkei, and it just isn't doing much. So probably just waiting for a little bit more certainty there. Let's have a look at Berkshire Hathaway. So Berkshire Hathaway doing a very cautious pullback down to these lower points here. I did highlight this. We pulled back up. Now we're starting to come back down. I think it's likely that we'll see a deeper correction here based off this price action, possibly down towards that 430 mark. That's fine. That's all good. And of course, Buffett sitting on billions, hundreds of billions in terms of cash. So it's potentially the case that Buffett sees the market due for a deeper correction, which technically on a monthly basis we could see that happening, and therefore he's getting ready to do a lot of buying. For me, when Buffett is cash rich, it's because he's anticipating a buying opportunity in a market correction. Okay, that's great, as opposed to a market crash, but more of a something. So that. Think of that, guys. That could be something amazing. NVIDIA as well here, kind of just doing a nice little retracement, broke through the upward sloping trend line and is coming back for a pullback into these highs. So that's a good thing. Then we've got Tesla. Tesla, this was interesting. So for me, Tesla did this, it no doubt breached this downward sloping trend line, I beg your pardon. So I could technically remove that. But what I would say is it really has to break this level of resistance, which is kind of technically more sitting at around about this area. If I do just go back up and do it, somewhere around, okay, let's get rid of that. And let's adjust this. There we go. So more around the 270, 272 mark. It's really got to get through that, but it was, it's obviously looking quite bullish here. There's no doubt this is looking nice and bullish, but will it be able to break through that? We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see if that's going to be the case. Okay, so cool. But it is looking relatively bullish based on all of this. Then we have got Vanguard doing a very nice, beautiful, very nice retracement over here. So I'd be looking and expecting reasonably a bullish candle to form in this area. Okay, looking at the monthly here, because originally we were looking for a pullback into this area. We got it. I'd possibly be looking for a monthly retracement if we get that. That to me is a worst case scenario, but that would be a good thing, back down towards 500, which puts us back into this area around here anyway. If you recall, back then I was complaining about some of them that didn't do a deep enough correction. Some did and some didn't. And so to me, this is just a lot of that stuff catching up. It's almost as though it got tired, stumbled a bit, managed to give it another bit of a push, and now it's going to catch up with it. So I'm very happy if this ultimately plays out. And usually that type of thing I would expect to play out in January. So to kick off in January, we would see that happening because it would push through the Santa Claus rally, and then we would see that correction. Okay, so this is bonds, 10-year T-note. It continues to push a little bit lower. They're still taking a hit. We didn't break the high of this one here, so that was a no-go. We're continuing to come back down towards this level. So it looks like the markets are not ready for bonds just yet. They're not doing terribly, but they haven't changed trend just yet. I was also looking for that setup there. We didn't get that. We didn't break the high. There was no follow through. The market's coming back down, and you can see here it's more range bound. So that's okay. That's different from here where we continue to head low, and now we appear to be sort of going sideways. And so again, interesting still to me. If we are going to find a bit of a correction, it's just treading water until that time. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin still attempting to break outside of this range. Now, I want to mention this as well because this is a very messy, but technically it is a bull flag. So we're kind of just roughly looking a little bit like that. And so usually once you break through that, you'd see a move higher, but you've got to get past this level of resistance, and that's holding steady. So remember, because of course this is a digital asset, this is a digital asset, and therefore it's still tied very much to tech stocks. So if tech stocks are going to take a hit, 90% of the time it's highly correlated. I would expect crypto to battle to get past that as well. So it's battling with this level of resistance. Definitely worth my while to put another mark or resistance up there. That's what it's got to get through. Okay, so we'll see if that does. Overall, this looks relatively nice. I'm happy with that, and we'll see if it's going to manage to push through. It'll be rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare for cryptos to boom while everything else is tanking. I've seen it once last year where they sort of uncoupled and then it went back to correlated. So I'm not going to just lean on that. Ethereum here also waffling a bit, not really going anywhere, looking actually quite weak. Essentially here could find itself heading a little bit lower. So that's it. Okay, so guys, just be very, very cautious. I would advise heavily against trading or reducing risk, or just sitting this one out until we get past the election results. I would watch to see how the markets respond to it. I'm very interested in that. Remember that the votes will start coming through relatively quickly. So before the last station in Alaska is closed, we should start seeing some of the votes starting to be released from other parts of the world. It's going to be happening overnight because it'll be happening throughout the US. So by the time the US goes to bed, they will have some of those results coming out, but we'll be waking up. And so throughout our Wednesday, we will see some of that stuff coming out. And it'll be interesting because if I'm right, as I said, it'll be heavy blue, like right from the get-go, which means that, and Fox News, interesting, as much as I don't follow them in any other way, they will call it if they see it. So if they call it for Kamala, you know it is done. It's in the bag. So it's going to be interesting, no doubt. I would really watch it from the sidelines, and let's see how this plays out. And let's see what happens. And on that note, ladies and gents, have a great week, and I will see you next weekend.